What's going on YouTube? We back with another banger video, and today we are reacting to the politics of One Piece. I'm not really a big politics guy, but I seen that in the Doflamingo video that you guys was talking about how they couldn't touch him because he's a warlord or something like that. So I was like, kind of a little bit about the politics. The Marines couldn't really do nothing, so I just gotta understand, like, why is that a thing? So that's why I wanted to react to this video. Make sure you guys go grab you some snacks, go grab you a chocolate chip cookie and some milk, okay? And yeah, I'll be back in 2 seconds.
Be right back. Few months, certain cosplay props been showing up in places you'd never expect, at least if you don't know anything about the anime and manga that it's from. A goofy little caricature of a skull and crossbones and a jaunty little yellow straw hat flying proudly over desperate protests and the flaming wreckage of a nation's capital. There are a few Shonen Jump anime one could say have conquered the world over the years, but none quite so literally as this. From New York to Jakarta, Paris to Palestine, Rome to Kathmandu.
Y'all like this?
Is being adopted the world over as the official manga of protest and revolution, which must be more than a little confusing to folks who mainly know Luffy as that one guy who was always standing next to Boruto's dad in Bleach.
I was like that too.
You know, that one anime that's way too long to ever watch it. Meanwhile, those who have watched it are just thinking,
Sniper King, shoot down that flag.
Those pirates just declared war against the world government!
yeah, sounds about right. So in the interest of clearing up that confusion, and also just because I think it's really cool and fun to talk about, I want to examine some of the political themes that have made One Piece and the Mugiwara flag such lightning rods for radical and revolutionary thought among Gen Z. Though before we can get to that, this video is sponsored by Stella Sora, a classically styled top-down light action adventure RPG with a branching episodic story. Now, with that out of the way, before getting started, we should also probably address all the folks who will adamantly insist One Piece isn't political at all. So, yeah, they're just completely wrong, both in the broad everything is political sense that no work of art can fully expunge its own creator's biases and worldview, and the meme sense that it has many queer and racialized characters in it.
Why does that matter?
In the more specific sense that Eiichiro Oda has a lot of very strong opinions regarding governments and social issues that he builds most of his story arcs around. Drum Island is explicitly about the evils of privatized and monopolized.
Is that Chopper?
The entire East Blue
Or is that a
Side
race?
is bookended with stories about different scales of police corruption. Skypiea is about colonialism and its ties to the romanticized age of exploration. Fishman Island deals with civil rights and the evils of racial supremacy. Alabasta and Dressrosa both examine from different angles how covert foreign actors can destabilize and subvert sovereign states. Water 7 is about basically the CIA doing that and leads directly into a vicious spoof of Japan's guilty until proven innocent court system. Wano explores the pros and cons of open borders with a little side of trans rights. Sabo's backstory is all about how elites divide and conquer through social stratification. Robin's backstory shows how history can be twisted and erased to control political narratives in the Smithsonian. The entire summit
Why he cut that out for?
is about the corruption and politicization of justice itself. Long Ring Longland is about cheating scandals in the Laugh Olympics. It's a very political manga. And when you dig deeper to look at the underlying narrative connecting those arcs, you find revolutionary politics baked into One Piece and Luffy's very DNA. Literally. Oda keeps a picture of Che Guevara hanging prominently in his studio, and he's based more than one character on his likeness and history, including Monkey D. Luffy's own father, Dragon, the leader of the Revolutionary Army. Now, Luffy himself is not a revolutionary.
You know, he could have said like spoiler warning right there, but I guess it's good.
Priority is the redistribution of meat. But
I don't know what his dad can do yet. So
in the most literal sense of the term,
I knew he had one though.
Fight anyone who tramples on his or his friend's freedom, which naturally leads to him overthrowing a despot.
He did not have to punch that guy like, or kick that guy like
with
that.
him is his friend for life. And for that, like many freedom fighters,
Wait, they all got the
dominant global hegemony has
Is that something they do when they join?
Is his friend for life.
They all have an X right there. Is that just something they do? That's cool.
Fighters, the world
Even Chopper got it.
Dominant global hegemony has branded him a criminal and a terrorist. That hegemony, the world government, isn't...
Man, F the world government in One Piece, man. Y'all supposed to stand up for these people no matter what they do. I won't forgive them for letting Doflamingo do those things that he did just because he was a warlord. I won't forgive that. Man, F the world government. if I'm right, let me know. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Okay.
Any specific empire, but there are some clear historical parallels. Aesthetically, it borrows a lot from Age of Sail Britain, but the material conditions are a little more modern. A vast network of international extortion that drains the resources of subordinate states in exchange for vague protection, while treating the citizens of unallied states as effectively...
Bro, I need a live-action Naruto. I'm sorry.
Or just for the hell of it. A nation literally built on top of a racialized underclass whose slavery was made illegal several years ago on paper, but is still carried out in practice through loopholes in the prison system, ruled by an elite class of lazy, malignant nepo babies who are treated like gods basically just for existing. And if you so much as think about hurting one of them, they will bring the full weight of the state down on your head faster than you can blink. Though, of course, that last point applies to pretty much every empire, and that is the real point of the world government. The shape of and justifications for authoritarian regimes change from country to country and era to era, but the villainy masquerading as justice is an eternal constant. Justice, alongside freedom, is one of the two thematic pillars of One Piece, and much of the story concerns itself with figuring out what precisely those two words really mean. Every pirate is living a life of freedom, or at least thinks they are, while every marine at least claims to embody justice. But just as each pirate has a very different view of freedom and who should get to enjoy it, every marine uses their own definition of justice to justify their actions, villainous or otherwise. Fujitora, the samurai admiral, practices humane justice, with an emphasis on protecting innocents over blind criminals. A noble ideal, to be sure, but I love blind characters. Immediately compromised by the company that he keeps. His efforts to protect people mostly just end up mitigating the collateral damage. He opened his eyes. That's by his less humane allies, which is perhaps why he got promoted, despite how many criminals he lets get away. It would certainly be a good PR move on the part of Marines, who kind of need him to serve as a counterbalance to the determined justice of Ryokugyu, the cop admiral who seeks to achieve justice by violently subjugating everyone he personally deems to be undeserving of it, which is pretty much anyone who refuses to submit to the authority of his gods, the celestial dragons. Such people he doesn't even see as human anymore. Standing between those two extremes is Admiral Kizaru, a fundamentally fickle man whose ideal of justice is unclear. He's a laid-back sort of guy, some might say too laid back, inquisitive and open, if absent-minded, which makes him a fast friend to Dr. Vegapunk. But wasn't that little dude really smart or something? Yeah. Particularly decisive. Why did they draw him like that? He was like a huge scientist. Complexities of justice for himself, he'd much prefer to be under orders, which he follows with ruthless efficiency, free of the responsibility of actually passing judgment himself. Though after the events at Egghead, he may no longer be able to cope through the guilt of that. His arc seems to be paralleling that of former Admiral Kuzan, whose motto of lazy justice came about as a result of his old burning sense of justice being quenched by the atrocities at Ohara, to the point you can scarcely call it justice at all. It's clear that he quit the Marines in his heart long before turning in his official resignation, and without that ideal, it's really no wonder that he ends up siding with the Blackbeard pirates after leaving, despite his kind nature. After all, as Luffy's foil, Teach is the ultimate avatar of selfish, individualistic freedom, and after a lifetime spent sacrificing his own freedom for justice, he met Buggy,
It wasn't Big Mom, but it was like something y'all was some girl y'all was saying she was like Big Mom or something like that.
Still being denied his final
I forgot who else,
promotion
though.
by the Navy, it's only natural that Kuzan would swing all the way in the other direction. Former Fleet Admiral Sengoku's reasons for stepping down are a little more noble. His ideal of reigning justice emphasized giving the people of the world a sense of security born from knowing that the Marines were looking out for them. But when the world government sought to save face by sweeping the prison break of Blackbeard's new Titanic captains under the rug, despite the danger those criminals posed to an unwitting public, Sengoku could no longer reconcile his ideal for what the Marines should be with the reality of what they are. Though, unfortunately, his leaving paved the way for someone even worse. In keeping with his magma-based power set, the new Fleet Admiral Sakazuki's approach to justice is full scorched earth. He believes that the world will only become truly just when all of the evil in it, including potential evil, has been rooted out and purged. This is, if I may editorialize here, a child's view of morality.
Yeah,
The
it is, but it's not a bad
idea that
view,
the world
you know.
will become good if you can just get rid of all the
But you
bad
can't always get rid of
as
like
if
bad
all
people
the
though.
suffering and death that you'd have to cause to make that happen wouldn't make you one of the worst people to ever live. But that childish outlook is right in keeping with the brand of justice endorsed by the world government itself, absolute justice, which is a pretty straightforward philosophy. Everything that opposes the world government is absolutely evil, and anything the world government does to stop it is absolutely good. Even if that means cutting down innocent civilians just to get a pirate, or testing top secret experimental weapons on children, or nuking an entire island just to uphold the official narrative. And with that being their official party line, you can probably imagine what the Marines are like as an organization, especially under Sakazuki, worse than basically all of the criminals that they're actually capable of stopping. Besides a few notable deserters, the only good Marines are the ones who've crafted their own personal code of moral justice, like Kobe, Smoker, Tashigi, and Garp. But even Garp participated, albeit reluctantly, in the God Valley genocide. He saw the same things that made his son want to kill the entire government. And he kept working for them. You can put that down to pragmatism. Say he wanted to use the institutional power he'd gained to do as much good as possible in his life instead of just throwing it away.
In One Piece, are the Marines the bad guys or are they the good guys? Like, could you even say that since the main characters are pirates? You know what I'm saying? Like, how does that work? Like, who protects the regular people? Is it Luffy or is it the Marines?
And to be fair, he did refuse all offers of promotion.
Because I sure don't know.
Point, knowing that a full admiral would have to work even more closely with celestial dragons and just follow even more insidious orders, but he still follows the orders he's given and knowingly lends his not inconsiderable personal strength to
Did he just throw
that ultimately serves
a cannonball at another ship and it blew up?
Play with innocent people's lives for fun.
Bro, what?
And Garp is the best of the Marines.
So
if he's that much of a bastard, they all are. And I think that One Piece is much more persuasive in making that case than a lot of media that says similar things about, say, cops, because it's so sympathetic to guys like Garp who want to do good. Oda is clearly not saying that every Marine is irredeemably evil, but at some point in their careers, every Marine is called on to defend their fundamentally unjust, corrupt, and oppressive
I didn't know the Marines had this much backstory between them, man.
Of good people who just want to fix it. And all of them decided that career was more important for whatever reason than not being bastards at least some of the time. But the reasons do still matter. In a choice between the government and the people, the Garps, Smokers, and Kobes of the world are infinitely more likely to do the right thing, or at least the less wrong thing, than the Rokugyus, Sakazukis, and Nezumis. Despite having hitched themselves to a broken system just because it seems like a lesser evil than piracy, a lot of these bastards do still want to do good.
Why can't more people just be good pirates?
Better if they can just be made to believe that better things are
Why do they think pirates always gotta be bad? I never
understood
understood
nuance that gets lost in simplified, absolutist, potential ally alienating slogans about all Marines. Oda is never dismissive of people with a sincere passion for
Kobe's
justice,
doing
but
that
he
now?
is deeply critical of how that passion can be twisted to unjust ends. One Piece frequently pits the forces of freedom and justice against each other. It's the most persistent conflict in the entire series, present from the moment that Luffy...
I still would never get over that he was trying to poke him. I know that's not what it was. It was called a finger gun or something,
to produce
but...
a synthesis between the extremes of the Marines and pirates, between those who claim to uphold justice while protecting the world's greatest and richest criminals from it, and those who seize freedom for themselves at the expense of the weakest and poorest. A truly universal brand of justice that none are allowed to stand above, whose purpose is to protect instead of restrict freedom. Because you cannot have true freedom unless all who would trample on it are brought to justice. And until all men are free, justice can never be truly absolute. Earlier, I called Luffy a freedom fighter, but I'm far from the first influencer to do so. Hassan Piker used those very same words to describe him, and he's thrown even more contentious labels at the series, arguing that One Piece is communist and Luffy is Antifa, which are pretty strong claims to make, especially about
Thank you, W, for sponsoring this video. W is an energy-free, sugar-free supplement to give you no crash or jitters throughout the day. If you guys are tired of staying up all night gaming or watching YouTube or watching me even, then go ahead and grab you some W. My code is in the description below for 10% off every W product. Thank you again, W, for sponsoring this video. Universal out.
a kids cartoon that started in the 90s, but that doesn't mean they're not worth considering. So is there anything in the text that backs them up? Well, One Piece does portray many of its villains, from Eneru with his surveillance state to the world government with its everything, through explicit
I don't really have nothing to say.
Fascist regimes. And Luffy does punch a whole lot of ethno-fascists and theo-fascists.
Everything that he is saying is making sense, bro. Like, it's kind of interesting.
Faces, but as I've already said, that's not necessarily out of a committed ideological opposition to fascism itself, so much as the fact that fascists keep getting in the way of him and his friends' dreams and or meat. Luffy only ends up punching so many of these pieces of shit because he's a naturally good person. He doesn't need to be told that they're enemies of freedom. He can simply see it for himself from their heinously evil words and violently oppressive actions and act accordingly. So I
have noticed that Luffy does do the right thing a lot, even if he does it a little bit later.
Does anti-fascism. His dad definitely would, though. And speaking of Shay, as for the communism thing, on a surface reading, that does immediately seem a little silly. I mean, Nami, one of the core OG Straw Hat trio with us from the very first arc, just loves money and treasure. It's kind of her whole thing. It's just so shiny, and having it makes her so happy, and it's so useless to her when it really counts. Nami saves up her entire life. No. You can't stop them from oppressing you by playing their game by their rules with their pieces. You have to flip the board. While she never loses the obsession with money that many people who grow up in crippling ongoing debt develop, the thing that actually saves Nami is the friends she made along the way doing a whole bunch of violence on her behalf until the oppression stops.
Makes
Something
sense,
they
yeah.
do for a lot of their friends all around the world, and it always works. This is a recurring theme that we see cleverly inverted when the crew finally reaches Arlong's hometown of Fishman Island, whose new place in the world government hasn't actually done anything to dismantle the slave trade or make the surface world safer for fishmen and mermaids. Fisher Tiger and the Sun
There's
Pirates have
mermaids?
accomplished far more in that regard with their total disregard for world government law. Otohime's efforts to change hearts and minds within the system aren't completely worthless. In saving Don Quixote Mjosgard, she ultimately saves her own daughter from being enslaved, but they still tried to capture and enslave her daughter at a meeting of the One Piece UN. And despite
I don't know what that is, but this is crazy.
The world government, the fishmen still need
This is
the
how deep One
protection
Piece goes,
of a
man.
crime
This is
lord
crazy.
to stop raids on their island, just like the giants on Elbaf do. In that context, it's not hard to see how Arlong and Hody Jones fell down such dark paths. They didn't have many better options. At the same time, though, the arc is quite clear on where those paths will lead. Fisher Tiger himself literally died because he couldn't let go of his hatred for humans. One Piece clearly argues that violent revolution is sometimes, often necessary to effect real change, but it's also careful to caution that revolutions which aim to subjugate out of hatred for the oppressor rather than liberate out of love for the oppressed will ultimately reproduce many of the problems they seek to solve. Blackbeard, whose ultimate goal is world conquest driven by a desire to avenge God Valley, is a prime example of the former, while Luffy, his rival to be Pirate King, is quite literally the embodiment of liberation. Blackbeard's pirates even mirror the organization of the Navy, with the 10 Titanic captains serving under Admiral Teach, in contrast to Luffy, who straight up refuses to accept the other captains of the Straw Hat Grand Fleet as his subordinates, instead opting for an informal sake pledge that they will all come to each other's mutual aid if ever called upon.
Wow,
Which is
Luffy's
the
doing
same
moves like
principle
this,
that
bro.
organizes the Straw Hat crew themselves. Yes, Luffy is their captain, but so's Usopp sometimes, and he rarely orders his crew around except when snap life or death decisions must be made. They all follow him willingly as a cohort of comrades who've pledged to help each other reach their dreams, and they are all free to leave if they ever disagree. They all share equally in the spoils of their adventures too.
What's that Chopper again, bro?
Only because the rest of them are idiots, and they all happily lend their skills to their friends with no expectation of direct compensation.
I like
you
that.
You could certainly call that commune-esque. Some might even say anarchish. And since Luffy's explicit goal is to become the freest man alive,
being king of the
Did he just
pirates
cut through a
is
mountain?
more free than anyone.
Or a boat?
you could take that as One Piece
Said mountain.
arguing that
That's
those
crazy.
specific principles of social organization and resource distribution are designed to maximize the freedom of the people living by them. But you could also make the case that that's a selective reading of the text, since Luffy has fought on the side of straight-up monarchists about nearly as often as he's joined up with revolutions, and more than once, he's stopped a full-on populist uprising in its tracks on behalf of an embattled king. Both of those times were to stop fascists who'd either manufactured or co-opted the movement, but Luffy still made friends with both of those kings. So One Piece isn't really advocating for any one specific form of society, so much as the idea that groups of people should be able to determine what their society looks like.
That's crazy.
For themselves, without being coerced or manipulated into undermining
Like I said,
culture,
I think I said somewhere,
really
I think I said somewhere like in my stream or something like that, I was talking about how like One Piece just feel like a whole bunch of freedom, and that was the whole point of it. And you guys was talking about like, yeah, freedom is the point of One Piece. And I understand. I see everybody wants to just be free at the end of the day. It's not about people doing the right or the wrong thing with One Piece. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I'm getting out of it so far.
Is whether a society has good leaders. And while it doesn't commit to any one model of governance, One Piece does very consistently define what a good leader is. Be they a king, a president, a pirate lord, or a god, good leaders in One Piece always put the needs of their people above their own,
Really?
while evil ones use their people to serve their own ambitions or needs, or just plain old selfish wants, in roughly descending order of how evil they are. Oda has a soft spot for dreamers, after all. Even ones with dreams so big they think they have to crush the dreams of others to make them real. There's a certain grudging respect given to villains like Crocodile, Blackbeard, Arlong, even Buggy, who do bad things to make better things possible for themselves and people they care about. Whereas the most despicable villains in One Piece, from Captain Kuro to Don Quixote Doflamingo, are invariably the ones who cast their dreams aside to indulge in their most base desires at everyone else's expense. Emperors Kaido and Big Mom are the ultimate expression of the former, having achieved their dreams, or at least come close enough, and convinced themselves that because they achieved that, they know what's best for everyone under them, while the Celestial Dragons and world government represent the worst kind of selfish rule. What makes Luffy so special, then, is that his dream, despite being the biggest and grandest of anyone in the entire world, never infringes on anyone else's. Quite the opposite. As it grows, it lifts up everyone around him, making their dreams
they basically start seeing that he could become the Pirate King, basically. And then they want to stay with him because of that reason.
Than ever
before. Like, his dream is so like Luffy dream. This is a crazy pause for him, but Luffy dream is to become the Pirate King, right? So that means he slowly becomes the Pirate King and wins, like, and starts like proving to everybody that he could actually do it, and they want to join him, right?
Maximal freedom isn't about elevating himself to a point where no one can stop him from getting whatever he wants. It's about destroying the barriers to freedom that hold everyone back. If there's a single overriding ideology that defines all of One Piece, it's that people who follow their dreams make the world a better place. And so the best possible world can only come about when everyone is free to dream. And that, I think, is what makes the Mugiwara flag such a potent universal symbol. Regardless of ideological specifics, every revolutionary is a dreamer at heart, carrying on the will of all the dreamers before them who were crushed beneath the boot of oppression. Though within the world of One Piece, there is another, even more potent symbol of generational struggle that the world government fears above all others. So much that they've spent the past 8 centuries trying to wipe it and everyone who remembers it from the face of the earth. A symbol that's been present in the manga since nearly the beginning, though its true meaning was only recently revealed with Luffy's new Gear 5 form, Joy Boy.
I've seen this
pirate,
form
legend
before.
Of a lost era, a forbidden folk hero sung of in whispers by those whose mere existence has been deemed a crime against the state. There's been quite a bit of debate since Gear 5's reveal over whether it's truly iconic or just a sillier, squigglier version of Super Saiyan. In my opinion, it is absolutely the latter, and that's exactly what makes it so iconic. When a Saiyan becomes super, it's almost always
like
in moments of intense rage or sorrow, those potent emotions fueling the newfound power that they need to kick the ass of the guy who made them feel that way. And this theme has been echoed across countless other shonen battle series when their heroes power up. The villain pushes them to their limits, threatens what they love most, and at their lowest moment, something snaps and they awaken. That's been the genre template for decades now. But Gear 5 doesn't feed on such caustic emotions. It washes them away, drowning out the violent
He used them as a Trump
villains with a cheerful drum beat and uproarious laughter.
What's it called?
Rather than just letting
Jump Rope?
Luffy hurt people more efficiently, it transforms both him and the world around him in a way that
fight
turns
was
each
genuinely
fight
insane.
into a goofy
Like,
little
what?
game and literally makes his dreams, however silly they might be, real. In a world ruled by anger and fear, One Piece posits that the key to true liberation is to embrace and embody unrestrained joy. To laugh in our oppressors' faces, even as they are crushed by conveniently timed pianos. That doesn't mean
I can't wait to get to that part of One Piece, bro.
Liberation,
really though.
But One Piece
looks
cautions
so good.
time and again that anger must be directed and purposeful to do more good than harm. In the very first chapter, Shanks laughs off personal insults and even a mild physical assault from the mountain bandits, who end up mistaking that restraint for weakness, but they see just how wrong they are as soon as they lay hands on one of his friends, and Luffy emulates that attitude on Jaya when Bellamy tries to pick a fight with him, refusing to let the petty tyrant control his emotions and only putting a dent in his cocky skull when he starts pissing on someone else's dreams. It's that kind of righteous rage, the kind we feel on behalf of our friends and fellow man, that the world needs more of, while petty anger born from personal affronts is largely useless. Wasted energy of no real concern to anyone with real power. That's why it's the man who can laugh from the bottom of his heart, even in the darkest of times, that despots fear most. For that man has fully harnessed his anger and can never be ruled by fear. Of course, knowing when and where to direct our fury is easier said than done, especially in this modern algorithmic age where enragement is engagement. We are conditioned to feel as if under attack from all sides at all times, pushed into a state of perpetual panic that paralyzes our ability to make rational decisions and respond to situations that deserve our anger. And often, the greatest, most dangerous injustices are wholly invisible to us, hidden in plain sight within systems we're taught to take for granted from the day we're born, slowly simmering beneath the cozy little pot of frogs we call society. So how can we ever know when we really need to act? Another great fictional freedom fighter has a pretty good answer to that question, I think, which I'll paraphrase for you now. Don't compare your circumstances to how they were yesterday. Look at how they were years ago. If it used to be okay, but it's not okay anymore, maybe you should do something about it. We're supposed to be leaving a better world for our children, after all. So if it's not better, if you're dealing with cruelty, with neglect, with a ruling class that wastes the people's money on frivolous, selfish bullshit, maybe it's time to get out there and raise your flag. I'm Jeff Thu, professional freedom keyboard warrior, signing out from the cruise.
Okay. If y'all missed that video, hit this like and subscribe button for me. Man, every time I react to a new One Piece video, it's always it just opens up my eyes to it even more. Like, I didn't know that they had stuff going on like that in the anime. I knew that the Marines and the pirates always go back and forth for whatever reason they be going back and forth for, but I didn't know inside of those specific, organizations, I didn't know that they had like certain things going on inside of them, like the Marines. I thought they was like just the police or whatever, and they didn't have really like crazy things going on. But they got people dying inside of the organization. They got corruption going on. Like, it's just crazy, man. But yeah, I'm gonna try to get another stream out for y'all this week, depending on how my week is going. But yeah, the last stream that I posted last Wednesday will be up on Patreon. Also, thank you to W for sponsoring this video. And yeah, Universal out.